Hello again. A Hindu guy contacted me the other day and forwarded some material about the usual effects as the percentage of Muslims in any country increases. He's worried, as are quite a few other Indians, because India has a large Muslim minority which is growing year by year. When the Muslim population of a country remains below 2%, they will, for the most part, be regarded as just ordinary citizens, posing no threats to anybody else. China and the United States are in this position, really. Once the percentage rises over 2%, and between 2% and 5% of the population of a country are Muslims, they begin to proselytize from other minorities and disaffected groups. And they tend to use prisons and street gangs to recruit new Muslims from. This is happening in this country, of course, and also in Germany. From 5% onwards, they exercise an inordinate influence in proportion to their percentage of the population. This is when they start pushing for the introduction of halal food. That secures food preparation jobs for Muslims. They'll increase pressure on supermarket chains and restaurants to feature halal on their shelves, and that sometimes comes with threats if they fail to comply. This sort of thing is occurring in France, the Netherlands, and of course the Philippines. Once they've reached 5%, they also try and get whichever government is in power to allow them to rule themselves and to set up Sharia courts. We've seen this in Britain, of course. Once the percentage of Muslims increases and approaches 10%, that's where trouble really begins. As they approach 10% of the population, Muslims tend to make a country more lawless if they feel it's a good way of getting their own way or complaining about what they see as unfavourable conditions. In France, it's about 8% Muslims, and you've seen a lot of the disorder and setting fire to cars and riots there and so on. Any non-Muslim action is likely to offend Islam and result in riots or threats of violence. This has happened in Amsterdam, of course. We remember the fuss about the cartoons of Muhammad and, of course, films about Islam. Tensions like that are seen daily once the said 10% mark is reached. You see it in Guyana, India, where the Muslim population is about 13% now. You see it in Israel. You see it in Kenya, where 10% of the population are Muslim. And you also see it in Russia. After the percentage of Muslims in the country reaches 20%, that's when things get really rough. Rioting can occur at any moment. The Muslims in countries like that are on a hair trigger. You get militias forming, random killings, churches are burned down, and so are synagogues, of course. You see this in Ethiopia, where about 32% of the population are Muslim. Once Muslims reach 40%, that's when it reaches catastrophic levels. You get massacres, constant terrorist attacks, and warfare between irregular militias, armed militias. Bosnia, you see it, Chad, Lebanon. And of course, after 60% of the population is Muslim, there's simply unrestricted persecution of non-believers of any other religion. There's ethnic cleansing, use of Sharia as a weapon, taxes on unbelievers. You get this in Albania, where Muslims make up 70% of the population, in Malaysia, Sudan, and so on. Once the Muslims are a very large majority, say over 80 or 90%, then you find they start turning on each other. Sunnis will fight viciously with Shiites and so on, and you'll get constant tension, constant bloodshed. As a good rule of thumb, the fewer Muslims in the country, the less chance there is of violence and ethnic tensions in that nation. Why this should be so is a debatable point, but that it is the case is not really, well, it's indisputable.